In a previous example, in working with a simple service, we saw how something that might take a long time to process can sort of hold that thread hostage and prevent the user from interacting with the application. And if they try to interact with the application, then it brings it to a crash. It's called an ANR crash, or app not responding, and it shows a message where they can force quit or continue waiting. And that's not a good design pattern to incorporate. So one way of working with some tasks that may not be really time consuming or take a long time, we can implement a progress dialog, which is just a progress bar that will pop up and show the user that something is happening, and at the same time that will not allow them to interact with the application. So I have a new project that I've created. In my layout, I just have a button to start a download, and in my main Java file, I have it set up so that the button has an on-click listener event, and the on-click listener is going to do a method called download file, and we're passing in a fake URL. It doesn't actually go out to here, so just give it a fake URL. It doesn't have to be a file on the web. So that's going to call this download file method, pass in the URL, and we're going to tell it to sleep for 5 seconds. And we have a return value, but we don't even really need that. It's not doing anything up here. So what our app will do now, I'm just going to test it so that we can compare to what will happen the next time we run it. Okay, here's our start download. The button stays orange for about 5 seconds, right? And in that time where that button is orange, it will not allow the user to do anything else in here. And if they try to fill in some stuff or interact with any icons or text, they'll get that app not responding error. So what we would like to do is when we click this button, we want a dialog to pop up and show the user that something is happening so that we're giving them some feedback. Okay, so back in here, we would begin by setting up our dialog. I'm going to put in a reference to the dialog. Okay, and I need to import in the progress dialog. And then next you would think that, okay, when we click the button, all right, we have our on-click listener. When that occurs, just before we start to download the file, we want to display our progress dialog. Okay, so here is how we're going to start our dialog. We're going to say dialog equals progress dialog show, and main.this is referring to this main Java file. Title, the title is what we want to display at the top, so I'm going to say downloading. And then the message we want the user to see, something like please wait. Okay, so that should display our dialog. So I'm going to run it. And when I click start download, there's our dialog and our please wait. And as you can see, it just keeps running. We don't have anything built in there to make it stop. So let's go back, and sometimes that will even come up with a force close if it's been waiting too long. So we've started the dialog, and now we can come down here and say, well, after it's finished sleeping, which is in essence the end of our download, we can say dialog dismiss. So now let's try that and see, once it's finished downloading after 5 seconds, if the dialog will indeed go away. Okay, so now start download. No dialog displaying, but this does stay selected for about 5 seconds. So what's going on? What's not working? If I come back here, I don't have any errors. Okay, let's consider the logic behind this. What we're doing is we're bringing this to the foreground, and then we're also telling it on the same thread to download this file. So in essence, we're telling it to do 2 things at once. Now, we don't want to display it and then take it off right away. We don't want it to be dismissed until after this is completed. So what we need to do is we want to move this off to its own thread to push it into the background, where our dialogue can be in the foreground while our download is happening in the background. So what we're going to do is move this into its own thread and then run that in the background. So what I've added here is new thread, and we use the thread class, which is thread, along with a runnable object. And the run method that we have down here is going to start the execution of the thread, which in this case is the download file. And when the simulated work is finished, in our case after about 5 seconds, then we're going to dismiss the dialogue. So it's going to call it down here, call this method, start to sleep, and then we'll dismiss our dialogue after that. Now I have some more cleaning up here to do. First of all, I need to start the thread, and then I have some unbalanced parentheses here, so let's fix these. Close this opening here. Okay, I think that's it. By the way, in case you didn't know, you can double click on right after these curly braces and it shows you your balance so that you can see what is opening and closing what sections. So I can double click on that parenthesis and see that this is all part of the on-click listener for the button. Okay, so let's run this and see what we have. So we'll start download. The dialog shows up. And it disappears right on cue. So it's coming up, running for 5 seconds, and then disappearing. Exactly what we wanted.